Hello everyone, welcome back to our True Crime channel, where we dive deep into some of the most perplexing and unsettling cases in modern criminal history. For all our returning viewers, thank you for your ongoing support, and your thoughtful comments and shared insights help us bring a deeper understanding to these tragic stories. If you're new here, you've come to a place where we post detailed, documentary-styled true crime narratives every single day, so consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you never miss an update. Your support means a lot, and as always, we encourage everyone to engage respectfully below. After all, these stories involve real people who have suffered immeasurable loss. Today we revisit a case that rattled the communities of Texas in the mid-1990s, the murder of Adrianne Jones, a bright and athletic teenager who became the tragic center of a deadly teenage love triangle. Her killers, Diane Zamora and David Graham, were not just any ordinary youths, but shining students who had aspired to prestigious military careers. Their crime left a deep imprint not only on those who knew Adrianne, but on an entire region struggling to make sense of such a horrifying betrayal of innocence. Let's step back into that cold December night and follow Adrianne's final hours, the frantic search that followed, and the eventual unraveling of a twisted romantic pact. It is just after midnight on December 4, 1995. The wind pushes through the open fields outside Mansfield, Texas, carrying a chill that settles into the bones of anyone standing long enough beneath the cloud-shrouded sky. The rural roads stretch in quiet darkness, punctuated only by the occasional passing headlights of distant vehicles. There is a hushed quality to the atmosphere, as if the night itself knows something dreadful has occurred. Along a secluded dirt path, the silence grows thicker until it can almost be touched. The moon, waning and pale, offers weak illumination on the farmland terrain and the patches of tall grass that sway listlessly in the breeze. Parked just off this narrow road is a car. Inside it, three teenagers have converged in a scene thick with tension and betrayal. Adrianne Jones, a 16-year-old girl with warm brown eyes and a promising future, sits in confusion and uncertainty. Moments earlier, she received a phone call from an acquaintance, someone she trusts enough to leave her home after hours. She has arrived at this lonely spot not expecting danger, just another chapter in the restless teenage dance of secrets and affections. Across from her, David Graham's knuckles grip the steering wheel, while Diane Zamora sits rigid in the passenger seat, her eyes fixed on Adrianne with a fierce intensity. Outside, the temperature drops further, and the distant hum of a passing truck fails to mask the fateful decision that is about to reshape three young lives forever. Hours before this encounter, Adrianne Jones's evening is relatively routine. After finishing her homework, she chats briefly with friends on the phone. It is a Monday night, and school responsibilities weigh on everyone as the semester edges closer to winter break. Adrianne's mother recalls seeing her daughter in her room sorting her books for the next morning and gently humming along to a favorite pop tune playing on the radio. A diligent student and a talented athlete, Adrianne typically ends her nights early to be ready for her morning track practice. On that night, however, a call comes in. A voice that Adrianne recognizes, presumably someone from her school or circle. She agrees to meet, perhaps out of curiosity, perhaps simply seeking a break from routine. Just after 11 p.m., neighbors recall seeing Adrianne's silhouette move quickly past the front window, purse in hand. A friend who spoke to her earlier in the evening remembers a calm, pleasant conversation. Nothing to suggest anything was amiss. Another classmate later reports driving past Adrianne's street and noticing a car idling at the corner, but thinks nothing of it. Adrianne, known for her friendly nature, steps out into the crisp December air and disappears into the night. No one knows exactly what she expects to find, but certainly not the terrible fate that awaits her. When morning arrives, the absence of Adrianne at her early track session raises subtle concern. Initially, the team and coaches think she might be running late or feeling ill. Around 7 a.m. on December 4, just as the first hints of dawn color the horizon, a passing motorist spots something unsettling in a remote field near Seaton Road, not far from Joe Pool Lake. The figure seen lying in the grass isn't moving. The motorist slows, then stops, heart racing. Within minutes, local authorities are summoned. They arrive at the scene to find a young female victim, lifeless and cold to the touch, her injuries indicating a violent end. Officers begin the delicate process of identifying the body, treating the site as a crime scene while preserving every possible piece of evidence. Calls to area high schools and missing persons reports start almost immediately. When Adrianne's parents realize their daughter never arrived at school and failed to return home, they contact the police. Their mounting panic intensifies as the police inform them that a body matching Adrianne's general description has been found. Within hours, the confirmation comes with crushing certainty. The Jones family's world shatters. Adrianne's quiet suburban community, known for well-kept lawns and friendly neighbors, suddenly confronts the grim reality that one of their own has been taken. The first stage of the investigation has barely begun, and the urgency to find answers is matched only by the sorrow engulfing those who loved her. Adrianne Jones is born to a hard-working, middle-class family in the late 1970s. She grows up in a relatively stable home environment in the North Texas region, where summers are long and blistering hot, and winters mild except on rare, frigid nights. She is the youngest of 3 children, with 2 older brothers who, despite the usual sibling teasing, look out for her as she enters her teenage years. Her parents encourage kindness, discipline, and a strong work ethic. As a child, Adrianne is known for her adventurous spirit. Family photographs show her smiling widely on family vacations, at nearby lakes, or on trips to the state fair. She is that kid who is always ready to try something new, whether it's a new hobby, a new school project, or making a new friend. Growing up, she is surrounded by extended family, cousins, aunts, and uncles spread around the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Holidays bring warm gatherings, where Adrianne's laughter can be heard playing tag in the backyard with younger relatives. The Jones family is not wealthy, but they are comfortable, united by love and respect. From an early age, Adrianne learns the value of working toward goals. Her father often says, "If you start something, Adrianne, you finish it." It is a phrase that will echo in her mind as she takes on school clubs, athletics, and volunteer work.
As she enters adolescence, Adrianne's teachers quickly recognize her potential. She shows a talent for running. Track and field becomes her passion. Coaches admire her dedication, early morning practices, after-school's endurance runs, weekend competitions. She listens attentively to advice and pushes her body to improve. Academically, she is steady, not necessarily the top of her class, but diligent and responsible. She is the student who reliably turns in her homework on time and makes steady progress each semester. Her interest in health and fitness grows, and she contemplates a future in sports medicine or physical therapy. By her junior year in high school, those dreams begin to feel attainable. She imagines attending college, maybe on a partial scholarship if her running times improve. She dreams of a future career in a field that allows her to help others stay healthy and strong.
Beyond her academic life, Adrianne's aspirations center on personal growth and exploration. She is fascinated by the world beyond her hometown. A few times a year, the family makes day trips to museums in Dallas, and Adrianne marvels at art and history exhibits. She occasionally mentions wanting to travel more extensively once she's older, perhaps to the East Coast to see autumn leaves, or even abroad to Europe. She is not entirely certain where life will take her, but she knows she wants more than just to stay in one place. She also keeps a small notebook of goals: achieve a personal best in the 400-meter dash, learn to bake a perfect chocolate cake, and maybe one day run a marathon. In her immediate household, Adrianne is a caring daughter and sister. She helps her parents prepare dinner by washing vegetables or setting the table. She offers to babysit younger relatives and provides her grandparents with patient company when they come over for Sunday lunch. Family members praise her for her kindness and empathy. If a neighbor falls ill, Adrianne is quick to sign a get-well card or drop off a plate of cookies. She is by all accounts a genuine good soul, raising no alarms in anyone's mind, no signs of secret troubles or dangerous associations. Extended family connections play an important role in Adrianne's sense of identity. She attends birthday parties and family reunions where stories are shared and laughter is abundant. There is a strong emotional support network, and it's one reason why the news of her disappearance and death later sends ripples of pain through a large web of people who care deeply about her. In the months leading up to December 1995, life in the Jones family is as ordinary as it can be. Adrianne's grandmother last sees her at Thanksgiving, the two of them comparing pie recipes and laughing over old family photos. No one senses the shadow lurking around the corner. Outside her family, Adrianne has a vibrant social life, though not necessarily that of the stereotypical social butterfly. She has a close-knit circle of friends and fellow students from high school and colleges, as well as friends and college connections from high school. Teammates from track, classmates who have known her for years. Together they attend school dances, cheer for their school team at Friday night football games, and occasionally hang out at the local mall. Adrianne enjoys listening to music in her room, reading novels borrowed from the school library, and watching the latest teen television dramas. Her social interests are simple and relatable. She's the kind of friend who remembers birthdays and writes heartfelt messages in yearbooks. In mid-1990s suburban Texas, the atmosphere is stable, and most teenage lives revolve around school events, weekend jobs, and plans for the future. Adrianne fits right in. She is not known to seek out high-risk situations or keep troublesome company. Instead, she cherishes stability and safety. Her life, from the outside, seems to be on a steady, positive path. That is precisely why her disappearance overnight, and the gruesome discovery of her body, shocks everyone who knew her. This is not the type of tragedy that makes sense in a place where children play freely in front yards and parents trust their neighborhoods. Yet, here they stand, confronted with unimaginable horror. The morning of December 3, 1995 is ordinary for Adrianne. She wakes around 6 a.m., taking a quick shower and dressing in her comfortable attire, jeans and a sweater. Breakfast is a simple bowl of cereal and a glass of orange juice, while her mother packs a lunch. Around 7:20 a.m. she heads out to school with her older brother driving. The sky is partly cloudy but bright, and temperatures hover in the mid-50s. At school, Adrianne greets her teammates and friends. Classes proceed as usual. She pays attention in English, takes notes in biology, and laughs quietly with a friend during lunch about an upcoming track meet. During the day, Adrianne works on a history assignment due the following week. She mentions to a friend that she's hoping to improve her time on the 1600 meters to impress the track coach. After school ends at 3:30 p.m., she attends a brief track practice. The team focuses on sprints and form drills, ending just before 5 p.m. Adrianne heads home, helping with a few household chores before dinner. She enjoys a quiet meal with her parents and brother. Afterward, she settles into her room to complete homework. A typical Sunday evening in her life involves studying, a bit of TV with the family, and an early bedtime to prepare for a busy Monday. By 8 p.m., Adrianne is reorganizing her backpack, making sure she's ready for the coming school week. Around 9 p.m., she speaks briefly on the phone with a classmate about a school project. At 9:30 p.m., she calls another friend to confirm plans to meet later in the week. Nothing in these communications suggests anything out of the ordinary. Around 10 p.m., her mother peers in, says goodnight, and Adrianne responds cheerfully. Sometime after this, a call comes in, a male voice, vaguely familiar. Adrianne's mother vaguely recalls hearing her daughter's voice take on a slightly surprised tone, but she dismisses it as harmless teenage conversation. Adrianne agrees to step out, likely expecting a short chat or a friendly drive around the block. From roughly 10:30 p.m. to 11 p.m., Adrianne prepares to leave. The exact details of what she thinks will happen remain unknown. According to investigators who later reconstruct the timeline, phone records show a call from a friend of a friend, someone Adrianne might trust enough to meet privately. By 11:15 p.m., Adrianne slips out quietly. There are no raised voices, no suspicious vehicles spotted in her driveway. A neighbor's security camera captures a faint glimpse of a figure fitting Adrianne's description, walking down the street, then disappearing from view. The camera's timestamp reads 11:20 p.m. By midnight, Adrianne has entered a vehicle on a quiet nearby street. Investigators later pieced together that David Graham and Diane Zamora, both known faces around the community, Graham, a high-achieving student heading toward a bright future at the Air Force Academy, Zamora, a top-ranking student accepted into the Naval Academy, are present. Witness accounts from that night are scarce. One passerby recalls seeing a car parked on a gravel turnoff around midnight, but gives only a vague description. Another reports hearing raised voices, though not clearly enough to distinguish the conversation. There is no immediate alarm, because it appears to be just another private teenage rendezvous on a quiet Texas road. In the following hour, events turned deadly. Adrianne's final confirmed location is a desolate stretch of land far from the nearest gas station or convenience store. The last time anyone sees her alive is likely in the passenger seat of that car. A local farmhand who drives along Seaton Road shortly after midnight notes that he sees a dark sedan pulled over, but he is too tired to pay much attention and continues on his way. No surveillance cameras capture what happens next, only the silent testimony of tire tracks and disturbed grass found in the morning. Adrianne's final communications remain a mystery. There are no calls for help logged, no panicked messages to friends. Authorities later speculate that she never had the chance. By the time the police begin their official efforts after sunrise, the trail is already cooling. They find Adrianne's body in the early morning hours of December 4. Her family's desperate calls to her friends and classmates yield no immediate clues. The shock sets in quickly. What was meant to be a typical Monday morning at school transforms into a day of whispered hallways and anxious speculation. Law enforcement personnel move quickly, sectioning off the crime scene. They note the position of Adrianne's body and the signs of a violent struggle. By mid-morning, the victim is identified. The Jones family, now aware of their devastating loss, collapses in grief and confusion.
The first hours of the investigation are crucial. Patrol officers secure the immediate perimeter, photographing footprints, tire impressions, and any debris. A K9 unit is called in to see if any scent can be tracked, but the cold and open landscape present a challenge. Local detectives meet with the Jones family, reassuring them that every resource will be deployed to catch the killer. Within the first 24 hours, the department coordinates with neighboring jurisdictions to ensure that no suspicious vehicles or individuals slip past unnoticed. Despite their best efforts, they have little to go on at this early stage.
As Adrianne's identity spreads through official and unofficial channels, classmates gather in small groups after school, discussing what could have happened. Teachers and counselors offer support, aware that fear and grief can destabilize young hearts. By evening, the local news stations pick up the story. A bright, beloved 16-year-old girl found murdered. It is a headline that rattles even seasoned reporters. The phones at the police station ring constantly with tips, though most lead nowhere. Everyone hopes to find a piece that fits. A strange car scene, odd behavior from a neighbor, a rumor repeated at a weekend party. Adrianne's life, so carefully built around family, learning, and athletic dreams, is cut short. Investigators look back at the victim's past. A quiet girl, good student, track athlete, no known enemies. This is no gang incident, nor does it appear to be a robbery gone wrong. The murder strikes everyone as personal, suggesting the killer might be someone who knew her. The tragedy challenges the sense of security in this suburban enclave, and no one imagines that the suspects might be two high-achieving students with spotless reputations and lofty ambitions. Adrianne's past provides no clear motive for such brutality. And yet the investigators must push forward. They examine her friendships, her acquaintances, any potential romantic links. They will need to look carefully at who she trusted enough to meet late at night, far from home. But these are early days, and the puzzle pieces are just starting to scatter across the table. The authorities respond promptly to the murder scene, arriving in the early morning of December 4, 1995, after a concerned motorist reports seeing a body. The first officers on site are careful, surveying the area methodically. They confirm that the victim is deceased and that the location is now a crime scene. Yellow tape goes up, blocking off the immediate perimeter on the dusty road. The weather remains cool and overcast, preserving some forensic evidence. Detectives arrive within the hour, stepping carefully through the tall grass, taking notes and snapping photographs. They contact the medical examiner, who will soon transport Adrianne's body for a thorough autopsy. Volunteers from the local sheriff's department help search the nearby fields for anything that might have fallen from the victim or the perpetrator. A broken piece of plastic, a scrap of fabric, nothing is too small to bag and label. The police know that in cases like these, small details can crack the investigation wide open. By midday, they have a preliminary set of findings. Adrianne's cause of death suggests a brutal assault. There is evidence of at least one gunshot. Investigators mark the location where shell casings are found and send them off to ballistics experts. Within the first 48 hours, detectives focus on reconstructing Adrianne's final night. They speak with her family, confirming her routine and learning that she left the house unexpectedly late at night. They interview friends who may have spoken to her that evening. Digital forensics in 1995 is limited compared to future standards, but they do check her phone records, noting incoming and outgoing calls. Police analysts piece together a rough timeline of Adrianne's activities from the last 24 hours and cross-reference it with any available witness accounts. The victim's track teammates, teachers, and neighbors are all questioned. Though this yields a few leads, nothing concrete emerges immediately. The physical evidence at the scene is carefully documented. Technicians collect soil samples and examine tire marks that might correspond to a specific vehicle make or model. They photograph footprints and measure their depth to estimate weight and shoe size. A single earring found near Adrianne's body is bagged as evidence. Does it belong to her or to someone else involved in the attack? These questions swirl among the investigators as they work late into the night. The search for clues expands beyond the immediate crime scene. As officers drive the roads Adrianne might have traveled, stopping at gas stations and convenience stores to ask if anyone recalls seeing her. Before long, the media catches wind of the tragic story, and the public's attention intensifies. Local television stations air breaking news segments, showing the taped-off scene and a photograph of Adrianne provided by her grieving family. The community, already on edge, begins to panic. Parents hold their children closer, urging them to travel in groups. Community members organize candlelight vigils. Flyers appear on telephone poles and in storefront windows, bearing Adrianne's name and asking for information. Reporters question whether the police have any suspects, prompting the authorities to hold a brief press conference. The lead detective assures the public they are following every lead and not ruling out any possibilities. Adrianne's family, devastated, stands before the cameras once, appealing to anyone who knows something to come forward. Their tears and trembling voices resonate deeply with viewers. Community members begin calling the police tip line, offering any scrap of information, from a suspicious person seen in the area to possible connections they recall from local gossip. In these early days of the investigation, the media coverage is relentless, yet crucial. It keeps the community engaged, makes people aware that the killer may still be among them. The Jones family, despite their unimaginable heartbreak, cooperates fully with law enforcement and journalists, hoping that the exposure might lead to a break. Radio talk shows discuss the tragedy, and theories spread. Some residents speculate that the murderer was a stranger passing through, while others believe the killer must have known Adrianne, as random attacks are rare in their community. As more evidence trickles in, the pressure on detectives mounts. They pull in data from nearby towns, asking if similar crimes have occurred. They consider the possibility of a love triangle, a jealous suitor, or a personal vendetta. The media spotlight intensifies, forcing the investigators to balance transparency with the need to keep certain details confidential so as not to compromise the case. As the weeks progress, a shift begins in the investigation. Forensic analysis of the bullet and shell casings, combined with interviews and phone records, leads to subtle patterns. Detectives carefully re-examine Adrianne's known associates, including classmates with whom she had any form of relationship. They note that David Graham, a star student from a neighboring school and soon-to-be Air Force Academy cadet, had some connection to Adrianne. Initially, this link is tenuous. Graham is well regarded in his community, an ambitious young man with a bright future ahead. Likewise, Diane Zamora, Graham's fiancée, is an academic standout bound for the Naval Academy. Could these golden students, these shining examples of diligence and discipline, be involved in such a heinous crime? The new lead emerges when a tip surfaces. Graham may have boasted about a violent encounter. Investigators remain cautious, as rumors often swirl in high-profile cases. But the detail is specific enough to pursue. Ballistics reports return from the lab, indicating that the weapon used might match a firearm accessible to someone in Graham's circle. Witness interviews reveal subtle inconsistencies. One classmate recalls that Graham seemed unusually tense and evasive when asked about Adrianne after her death. Another mentions that Zamora exhibited odd behavior around that time, uncharacteristic mood swings, and intense interest in the murder case.
Investigators dig into the background of both suspects. Graham is known for his exceptional grades, participation in Civil Air Patrol, and aspirations to fly fighter jets. Zamora is likewise academically gifted, with a reputation for impeccable discipline. They seem like the least likely perpetrators, yet, as detectives follow the chain of evidence, more pieces begin to fit. Phone records place Graham in contact with Adrianne on the night of her death. Further inquiry into Zamora's activities reveals unsettling patterns of jealousy and possessiveness. The notion of a jealous rage, fueled by a twisted teenage romance, starts to solidify.
Even so, the case is not straightforward. Detectives grapple with the complexity of linking two well-respected teenagers to such a brutal act. They enlist forensic psychologists and consultation from experts who have studied cases of teen killers. This guidance helps them understand that outward success and ambition do not preclude deep-seated emotional instability or violent tendencies. Technology from that era is limited, but every scrap of data, phone calls logged, notes exchanged, school records, is scrutinized. Slowly, the evidence coalesces around Graham and Zamora. However, the investigation is not without hurdles. Some witnesses are hesitant to come forward, fearing retaliation. The case spans multiple jurisdictions, complicating the flow of information. As days turn to weeks and then months, the pressure to solve the case grows. The media occasionally criticizes the slow progress, which wears on the investigative team. Still, the detectives persevere, driven by their duty to bring Adrianne's killer to justice.
In the background, law enforcement works through resource constraints and legal hurdles to gather the necessary warrants for further searches. They seize items from Graham's and Zamora's homes, looking for diaries, notes, or articles of clothing that might link them to the crime scene. Digital footprints are scant by today's standards, but investigators examine any hint of an email exchange or a letter that might reveal a motive. They also consult gun store records, training logs from Civil Air Patrol, and academic calendars to build a precise timeline.
Eventually, they find a breakthrough in the form of confessions. Under pressure, and amid rumors that one of them might blame the other, both Graham and Zamora provide statements that outline a horrific plan. According to their own accounts, their crime is triggered by a twisted jealousy and a desire to purify their relationship by eliminating a perceived rival. This chilling admission transforms them from persons of interest into prime suspects.
As the suspects' identities come into focus, detectives delve deeper into their personal backgrounds. David Graham grows up in a structured family environment, showing early interest in aviation and leadership. He excels in school, participates in Air Force ROTC, and dreams of a military career. Diane Zamora is similarly driven, competitive academically, and held in high regard by teachers and peers. Together they form a seemingly perfect power couple, each reinforcing the other's ambition.
But behind their polished exteriors lurks a darker dynamic. Investigators learn that Zamora's jealousy is intense and demanding. Graham, eager to prove his loyalty, confesses to a brief fling with Adrianne, an encounter that Zamora perceives as a betrayal so unforgivable that only murder can rectify it. In post-arrest interviews, experts analyze their behavior, noting traits consistent with narcissism, insecurity, and an extreme need for control. The tension and emotional volatility between Graham and Zamora, once hidden beneath their disciplined veneers, surface as the most important clue. After the murder, Graham and Zamora attempt to cover their tracks. They dispose of evidence, craft alibis, and pretend nothing has happened. They attend their regular activities and plan their futures as if not stained by the blood of an innocent girl. Investigators trace their movements after the crime, rehearsals for their academies, social events. Friends recall Graham and Zamora acting anxious, snapping at questions about the murder, or avoiding the topic altogether. Some recall a puzzling tension between the pair, a sense that something had deeply unsettled them. With the suspects identified, authorities move forward with arrests. On September 6, 1996, the police take David Graham and Diane Zamora into custody. The arrest is a delicate operation. Officers want to ensure there is no flight risk or potential harm to others. Graham is apprehended at the Air Force Academy in Colorado, while Zamora is taken into custody in Annapolis, Maryland, where she has begun her studies at the Naval Academy. The news shocks their peers and the public at large. How could two bright, disciplined cadets commit such a brutal murder? Booking procedures follow standard protocol: fingerprints, mugshots, the reading of rights. These tasks seem surreal given the suspects' academic and military backgrounds. Initial hearings take place, during which prosecutors formally charge Graham and Zamora with capital murder. Both secure legal representation, with their attorneys vowing to mount a defense. The case quickly attracts national media attention. The press dubs them the Cadet Killers, weaving a narrative of promising youths turned monstrous. The trial commences in 1998. Prosecutors present a meticulously constructed case: ballistic evidence tying the weapon to Graham, phone records placing him in contact with Adrianne, and confessions in which both suspects implicate themselves. Witnesses testify to the suspects' behavioral oddities, while forensic experts explain the crime scene evidence. The prosecution highlights the chilling motive: Zamora's obsessive jealousy over Graham's brief relationship with Adrianne, and Graham's willingness to kill to satisfy Zamora's demands. The defense attempts to undermine the prosecution's timeline and raise doubts about the confessions, suggesting coercion or misunderstanding. They argue that their clients are just children caught up in a tragic misunderstanding. But the jury is not swayed. The abundance of evidence, physical, testimonial, and psychological, is overwhelming. Expert witnesses explain how the patterns of injury and the ballistic signatures match items recovered from Graham's possession. Prosecutors remind the jury of Adrianne's innocence and the senselessness of her murder. After days of deliberation, the jury returns a guilty verdict for both Zamora and Graham. Emotions run high in the courtroom. Adrianne's family, holding photographs of their daughter, weep openly. The judge sentences both to life in prison. The gravity of the crime, committed by teenagers who should have embodied the future's promise, ensures that the punishment is severe and reflective of the community's outrage. The final statements from the defense are muted and resigned. The prosecutors, at a press conference after the verdict, emphasize that justice has been served for Adrianne Jones. In the wake of the trial, Adrianne's family struggles to find a path forward. Their home, once filled with her laughter, now seems emptier. Her parents attend grief counseling and rely on the support of relatives and friends. They form bonds with other families who have suffered loss, finding some solace in shared understanding. Over time, they establish a small scholarship fund in Adrianne's memory, helping other young athletes pursue their dreams. While no amount of restitution can mend the pain, they cling to the hope that Adrianne's life, though tragically cut short, can continue to inspire others. The community rallies around the Jones family. Fundraisers are held to support their scholarship. Local churches organize memorial services and prayer circles, acknowledging that healing is a collective effort. Safety initiatives spring up in the region. Neighborhood watch programs become more vigilant, and parents talk openly with their children about personal safety and the importance of trust. Schools implement counseling sessions and workshops to help students process the trauma of losing a classmate to violence. In the broader social sphere, the case sparks debates on teenage crime and the pressures facing gifted students. School administrators review policies for identifying at-risk youth, even those who appear to be perfect on paper. Some community members lobby their representatives, urging better mental health resources for adolescents. Over time, slight shifts in policy occur. Schools put more emphasis on conflict resolution programs, and local authorities encourage anonymous tip lines for reporting suspicious behavior. Decades after the verdict, the legacy of this crime endures. Adrianne's name is occasionally invoked in discussions about teenage jealousy and lethal violence. Her family's advocacy efforts remind others that no community is immune to tragedy. The legal proceedings, thoroughly documented, are studied by criminal justice students as a case illustrating that perpetrators can come from any background, even those deemed exemplary by society's standards. The story becomes a cautionary tale about the hidden darkness that can lurk within seemingly admirable individuals. With time, The immediate intensity of the tragedy recedes, but the memory remains. The Jones family continues to honor Adrianne's birthday quietly. The scholarship fund helps promising young runners achieve their dreams, keeping a piece of Adrianne's spirit alive. Journalists covering follow-up stories interview community members who recall the shock and sadness that once gripped the area. They speak to current students, many of whom were not even born when the crime occurred, explaining the importance of knowing the past to avoid repeating it. At the end of this grim journey, we reflect on what we have learned, that appearances can deceive, that love twisted by insecurity can ignite unimaginable violence, and that communities can unite in the face of tragedy. Adrianne Jones's story, though heartbreaking, serves as a reminder of the fragility of life and the necessity of vigilance, empathy, and understanding. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more true crime stories. Leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Have you heard of other cases where promising young lives took a shockingly dark turn? Let's continue this conversation as we strive to understand the human conditions that lead to such actions and hopefully work toward preventing them. If you found this case compelling, you might also be interested in learning about other tragic love triangles and the psychological pressures that can transform ambition into depravity. We encourage respectful dialogue and collective remembrance of the victim whose life meant so much to those who knew and loved her.